Hey everyone, Ben Nelson here, the Everyday Real Estate Investor. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the show. Really appreciate it. And I am looking forward to going one-on-one here again today. I've had some great guests. We talked about the market. We've talked about going from bankruptcy to being financially free, which is awesome. Looking forward to sharing some more stories of success and some more advice and tips. I got a couple more great guests coming up here real soon. But today I wanted to get back to just this is kind of quasi philosophical, but also very business minded as well, and trying to figure out how to structure our business and things like that. So today I'm going to talk about this idea of having a wide stance versus being super targeted and really focused and honed in. So what do I mean by a wide stance? So this is something, this term was brought to me and mentioned to me, and I learned it from a mentor of mine. And basically what it means is just having uh, more than one source of business, essentially more than one thing going on. You have multiple things happening, you have multiple things bringing you business, you have multiple streams of income, things like that, versus being hyper focused and just having one thing you're going hard after and being focused on that. So we're going to talk a little bit about both of these and kind of some of the pros and cons of each, because as with anything, there's definitely pluses to both of these, positives, and there's some negatives as well. So, and then you have to decide, how do you want to structure your business and what is the best way to go about doing this. So there, let's dive into this and talk a little bit about it. So this is that whole idea of, okay, so do I get rich in a niche, or am I going to be kind of a jack of all trades? That's really like the extreme example of this, right? Um, and you don't have to be a jack of all trades, right? But the whole idea of having a lot of different things that you're doing, a lot of different things that you're focused on, a lot of different things. Now that's an oxymoron too, right? How can you have a lot of things you're focused on, right? But which is the right approach? Is it to get rich in a niche? Is it to be super targeted, or is it to be kind of this jack of all trades, or just have a wide stance, lots of different things that you're doing, maybe not bringing in as much as you could being focused on one, but they're all bringing in a little bit of revenue. So I'm going to give you a couple examples from my own life, my own business, of where I've done each of these and been um, kind of done it the wrong way, because that's how we learn, right? Is from our mistakes. And so I want you to learn from mine, and figure out how maybe you could have done it different to be successful. And then obviously I'm taking those things and learning myself as I continue to grow my business and take different approaches and try to be successful in the new things that I'm doing, and use those lessons to be successful moving forward, right? That's what we want to do. So first example was, and a lot of these wide stance things come from seeing opportunity within what you're already doing, right? So I was selling a lot of homes, selling a lot of, which I still do, but selling a lot of manufactured homes at the time this happened. And there was just a lot of people that really were like, I want to come in and do paint. I'm going to add new flooring. There's a lot of cosmetic work that needed to happen. And so at the time I was also flipping some of these. And so but I was only doing work on my own homes that I was reselling, right? Um so I was, well, man, this I am missing an opportunity here to I'm already flipping properties. I have these connections. Why don't I add this other piece of my business and branch off and start doing work for other people? Right? Great idea, right? They're already going to get the work done. I already have a relationship with them. And so what could go wrong, right? All I'm doing is doing a little bit of extra paperwork. I'm just coordinating a few extra things. And I'm already kind of doing some of this already. No big deal. I'll just add this on, and I will be able to bring in this extra revenue stream. Great concept in theory, but what happened to me was it actually ended up just pulling my focus away from the sales side of it, right? Because now I'm dealing with subcontractors, and I'm dealing with, oh, this wasn't done right, and so I have to coordinate someone coming back and do it. There's all the paperwork involved with being a general contractor, contracts with subcontractors and insurance, and just there's just a lot of nuances that honestly I didn't really think about or know about before I got into it. And so I found myself in this place where I was basically trying to run this additional business by myself at the time, in addition to doing sales and doing my own projects, and it just was not working. And so we'll get into a couple things that I could have done differently if I were to do it again, which I'm not, because I've just made different decisions in my business. But um, I decided that it was easier and better for me in that circumstance to just hire a general contractor. And, or if it's someone buying a property, I'm just going to hook them up with someone that can do the work for them. The extra little bit of money that I'm going to make from that, I can focus my efforts on trying to help another buyer, find another, or seller, find another project, things like that, that are going to, that I already have systems in place to produce those opportunities. And so my efforts are just better spent elsewhere. So that's the decision that I made, just based on how I had approached it. Again, we'll get into some other ways that I could have maybe done it differently. Another one, uh, example of being hyper focused, to the point of a fault is, and this is not necessarily focused in one type of business or one, you know, one approach or whatever. This is being like hyper focused in my real estate business, as far as being focused and having the source of my business, a big chunk of it come from one source, and it was great. But life happens, and very unfortunate event early this year that I've mentioned a couple times in prior podcasts since the beginning of the year, that my brother-in-law, contractor, builder, he was a main source of my business as well. And we had all these plans to work together, and unforeseen, obviously, passed away unexpectedly earlier this year. And there goes obviously the relationship side of it and the personal side of it, huge loss. But the business side, um, I have to go out and um, replace that business. Is the reality of it, right? That I had a lot invested in one source of business, and that source of business went away. So you have to be careful with that, right? If you're too focused, or you're too much in one um, person, or one source or whatever, that if that goes away, and a lot of times you can't control whether that happens or not, then where's that going to leave you if that goes away? Now, I'm all for building those relationships, having those key partners, all of that, but you also have to have a contingency plan. You can't have that be the only thing that's bringing in revenue, or a huge chunk of your revenue, because it if something happens, then it's gone. And now what do you do? Now you have to go out and replace that, and that's difficult to do. It takes time to do that. So, okay, sorry, that was a little bit longer than I expected, but those are two examples of kind of wide stance versus super targeted, kind of how those went wrong in my business. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these two different approaches, and kind of break these down a little bit. So, and it can give kind of a couple tips of things to do, things to not do, things to avoid when you're doing each of them. So first, let's talk about having a wide stance. So this is, again, basically just having multiple sources of business, multiple streams of income. You've heard that before, I'm sure. Multiple businesses bringing in revenue that is helping support, the businesses are supporting each other, right? So you're not relying on one um, source of business. You're not relying on one, even necessarily just one business, to bring in that revenue. And this can be a great approach, because what happens if you are doing real estate sales, and you are only doing real estate sales, and you are doing one sector of real estate sales, and then that sector of real estate, lo and behold, 20 to 30% lower pending sales than the prior year. Not that that would happen, but that can have a huge hit on your business if that is your only source. So a wide stance can make sense, right? If one area gets hit a little bit, then you can hopefully have something else that maybe isn't affected in the same way, from the same things, and so that can offset and balance out those slower times, or those times that are pulling back a little bit in another area, right? But what I do want to say is that it is really easy, if you're looking for opportunities like this, to get that shiny object syndrome going, right? Where you have all these ideas, and nothing really ever gets implemented, or just doesn't get implemented well. and you just end up being distracted really, and it doesn't really do anything for you. So that's one thing to be really aware of, and I've definitely experienced that. Especially right now, there's all these trends, and it's really easy to get pulled away from like, hey, people are making money in NFT art, and I think that's not a thing anymore, or at least I never really paid attention to that much other than people were making a bunch of money at it, and I was like, this is probably not going to last. But people made a lot of money in it, right? I could have easily gotten pulled into that. AI right now is a big thing. There's people doing all sorts of stuff with AI that they're making money on these, using these tools. And I'm not saying you need to pay attention to those things because they absolutely affect the industry that you're working in. They absolutely can affect what's going to happen moving forward in the future. But when you just have to be aware of those and be careful of getting pulled away from what you're trying to do just to chase something that may be short-lived, or that's hey, I can make money really quick, or even if it's a long-term plan, just making sure that it's a plan and you're not just chasing that shiny object, right? So, and that's really it. You need to have a plan if you're going to do it, and you need to be strategic. You can't just be on a whim, right? You can't, I'm going to do this, I'm going to add this into my business, or I'm going to add this, additional business on, I'm going to add this additional income stream. You have to, it starts with an idea, but you have to move that from an idea to plan, be strategic for it to be able to be effective for you. Um, there's a great opportunity to be able to build additional income off of similar or connected businesses. We've talked about that a little bit here at the office, that there's getting people are getting their homes ready, right? Power washing, they're painting, they're doing, and I talked about my trip down that lane earlier in the podcast. So there's just landscaping and all the things just to get your home ready. There's you could start a lead business, and agents have done that. You could start a marketing business. Like, all of these things you're doing anyway to generate business or to help your clients get ready for their home ready for sale, right? I'm obviously talking about real estate and being a broker here. There's so many things that need to happen along the way. You could title companies and insurance, and it's all sorts of things. That you buy a house, you have to get insurance, right? You have to go through a title company, or in a lot of places, right? Not every state uses title companies, but here in Oregon, title companies, they have to get their house ready to go. They a lot of times maybe are going to stage it. So there you go. There's another opportunity, right? So there's all sorts of ways you can do those add-ons, right? And it's like, well, someone's going to get the business. Maybe I should get the business. Movers, right? People, if they sell a house, they got to move, right? So there's another great one. So there's lots of opportunities to add on these additional businesses as additional income streams. But again, we don't want to do it on a whim. We want to do it with a plan, and add that on in a way that's going to be effective, and not just keep it at an idea stage, or just hey, let's try this and see if it works. You have to have that plan set up and be strategic about it. And this is a big thing that I figured out, that that was probably the biggest part of me failing with trying to be a general contractor alongside selling, is that I wasn't prepared to scale it. I went in thinking that I could just do a little bit of extra paperwork, make a little bit of extra money. And really what I found is that, and this is where that planning and being strategic comes in, and really knowing what you're getting into with that add-on of business. A lot of times, most of the time, it's going to take an ability to scale. Like, if you're going into it thinking, well, I'm just going to add some extra income, I'm going to do all these things on my own, it's probably not going to work, because you can't do everything. You can only do so much. There's only so much time in the day. You look at all these business owners like Elon Musk and Richard Branson, and yeah, they've got a lot of businesses, but you know what? They've got a lot of people helping them in those businesses. So you can't do it all. If you're going to try to be the general contractor and the real estate sales agent, and you're going to manage all of your own properties, and I mean, like, you just can't do it effectively. So you can do it, but you need a team to do it. And so that's really my biggest thing that I found, is if you're going to add any of these things on, you really have to build it in a way that it can scale, and that you're going to be able to build it to have that staff support and the team support that you need to be able to do it and do it well, right? Because part of it's your reputation. If you're trying to do all of these things and you do none of them, and that's the risk, right? Is if you're not focused, if you have this wide stance, you are really risking being ineffective and not doing lots of things, but doing none of them very well. So you can do all of them well, but you have to set it up in advance and have that plan in place and be able to scale it and put the pieces in place to make that happen. So that's my biggest thing, my biggest piece of advice. If you're going to have that wide stance, you're going to scale, or you need to be able to scale. You need to be able to add that support. If you're relying on just yourself, you're going to crash and burn in multiple ways. You're not going to be effective. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to be so stressed. We talked about a while back about entrepreneurs and how much more susceptible they are to depression and burnout and all these things. And don't put yourself in a position to be in that, to be that statistic, right? And so part of that is having the systems, having the team, planning the stuff in advance, not putting so much on your plate that you just have to do. So that's my caution with the wide stance. Be prepared to scale, know what it's going to take, have a business plan in place to be able to have the team and the support that you need to be able to actually build that additional income stream. Okay, let's talk about being focused. So I'm a big fan of being focused. I am sometimes very poor at focusing, but I agree with having some multiple sources in some ways. But I also think that being focused is a really, really good thing to do. And so one thing that when you talk to an investor, and when I talk to newer investors, I'll often ask, what are you looking for? What is it that you're looking for? What's the deal to you, right? Um, and the answer I get more often than not is, it doesn't matter as long as it's a deal. I'll look at anything as long as it's a deal. And what that says to me is they do not know. And so they're trying to have this, well, I'm open to any opportunity, but really they're not defining what that opportunity is. And so my point is that if you feel like you're putting yourself out there to be able to have more opportunity, but really more opportunity is going to come to you if you're really focused on what you're looking for, what the numbers are that you need. You can put all of these systems in place. You can look at a lot more deals. You can not look at a lot more deals, right? Because you're not going to waste, you know what you're looking for. So you know really quickly, this isn't a deal that I'm interested in, right? So being focused can have a lot of benefits in that you are quickly moving through things and disqualifying them to be able to get to the things that are what you're looking for. And you can really be honed in on what it is you're looking for. So the other thing that being focused does for you is you can become the guy, right? You can become the go-to in whatever your specialty is. What is that? For a long time, for me, that was I was the manufactured home guy. I still do some of that, but I've moved, a lot more into development and multifamily and investment in that sales world, in a lot of what I do. But that was me. And if anybody had a question about manufactured homes, I was the guy that they called, and I knew a lot, and I still know a lot about that niche because I was doing it for so long. Um, so you can be being focused and doing a lot of one thing. You can really be the go-to. You can be known as the guy in the industry that's your specialty. So being focused can help you achieve that. You can really get down to the finer details of what your specialty is, what your craft is, and you can be the best, right? And so when you're the best, and you can charge more. Your people are going to be wanting to work with you. They're going to be asking to work with you versus you having to stir up the business on not that you don't have to market or anything, but you kind of pivot to this place where it's like, well, you're the guy people want to work with you, and so now they're coming to you to work with you versus you having to go out to them and try to convince people or show them what you can do for them, right? They're already coming to you and say, hey, I want to work with you. Again, you can be really honed. You can be honed in on what it is you're doing. Think of it as, it's the analogy of a laser versus a flashlight, right? Both of them are light. One is just very, very focused, and a laser can be concentrated and it can cut through very dense and hard things, right? And so that laser focus can do a lot for you versus that flashlight. It's going to light it up, it's going to do something for you, but it's not going to have that same effect that a laser is going to have. And one of my so we talk about, this is an investing quote, but so take it with a grain of salt, I suppose, but I think it applies. And that's Warren Buffett has said, put all your eggs in one basket and watch the basket, right? um, so you have to be careful with that, right? Because per my example earlier, if all your eggs are in one basket and that basket is no longer there the next day, then that you're in trouble, right? Um, that's, I suppose, where the watch the basket thing comes in. But sometimes things are unforeseen, right? So um, you can be watching the basket, but it can still be pulled out from you unexpectedly. But I like that quote. I agree with that quote in general, that you don't have to diversify if you are really honed in and specialized and understand what it is you're investing in, understand what your business is, and you are being the expert, and you really know what you're doing. You can put all your eggs into one basket, because what's that's going to do, right? The results you're going to get, and yes, there's risk in anything, right? So um, there is that you have to take into account. But if you really feel good about a stock, or really, really good about a market, um, you if you've done all your research and you feel great about it and you really think it's going to perform the way that you expect it to, then you can put all of your investment into that. If you believe in one piece of your business, or hey, I'm going to build my brokerage, my team, whatever that is, my acquisition business, whatever that looks like, put it all into that. Like, hey, go all in and focus on that, and watch it, be diligent, have your system set up, and do really well with it. And I'm gonna end kind of with that, a couple like last takes on both of these things: wide stance versus focused. Um, in the end, I feel like a little bit kind of right in the middle is, not all the way one way and not all the way the other way. Somewhere in between is really probably a good balance, right? You again, being so focused, having one client, which I didn't just have one, but if you have one really big client that's driving all of your revenue, or a big chunk of it, that's obviously risky, right? So you can have a lot of focus on that, but you also can't ignore the other avenues that are providing revenue. At the same time, you don't want to be so spread out that you just don't have the ability to be effective. So somewhere in the middle is good. Everybody, I think, has a different place on that spectrum where they feel comfortable, where they're going to be most effective. So I can't tell you where on that spectrum you should be, because everybody has different personalities, different strengths and weaknesses, different abilities to do things. Again, you look at people like Elon Musk, who run multiple companies and lots of employees, and maybe that's not your strength, right? Um, but maybe you can be super, super focused on one thing and do really, really well at that, right? So um, the other thing that I will leave with is that if you do, and I've made this mistake as well. So when you do go to add something to your wider stance, you go to widen your stance, and you're going to add another business, some sort of income stream, another um, source of business, another client, whatever that looks like for that wider stance. Uh, add one, add one, solidify that, get systems in place for it, and then add another. If you're trying to add, hey, I'm a real estate broker, I'm doing remodels, I'm going to get my general contractor's license, and I'm going to start this insurance company, and I'm going to do staging too, because I've staged most of my clients' homes anyway. And you're just trying to do all of these things at once and add them all in. Your chances of succeeding in all of those are very, very slim, because it takes a lot of effort to put those things into place. And so I'm not saying don't do it. If that's your goal and that's what you want to do and you want to add those things, great. Uh, Slow down, come up with a plan, figure out which one you're going to add first, get those systems in place, get it going, get some momentum, and then add in the next one when that's done. So that's my biggest piece of advice with, don't get that shiny object syndrome, and add slowly, right? It's okay. It doesn't have to all happen at once. And as we get excited about these ideas, we're entrepreneurs. We want to implement all of these things, and it's okay to not implement all those things at once. So just know that, be okay with that, be smart about it. Add something in, get it solid. Now you got a couple of things working for you, and then add the next one when those are on solid ground, rather than throwing a whole bunch of things out there that you're trying to juggle all these things all over the place. Nothing's really balanced. You're trying to figure out systems and all those things, and it's just a lot more. You're going to put a lot more stress on yourself. It's going to be a lot more difficult, and your chances of success are a lot lower if you're going to go about it that way. So that's my advice. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. Sit down, figure out what approach you want to take. Do you want to have a wide stance? How wide do you want that stance to be? How many different sources? Or do you want to be hyper focused? And who do you want to be the person that everybody goes to for that specific need? So I encourage you to do that if you haven't done that already. Thanks again for tuning in. Go out and make some amazing real estate investments. Until next time, take a great rest of the day.